Welcome, I'm the DeadwoodJedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and we are on the test server today. We're going to take a look at all the new Sylvan champions. There are some other new champions that are being dropped in the game, but I thought we'd take a moment and focus on the ones in the new Sylvan Faction, because obviously we're going to be really excited about that. We're going to want to collect them, obviously, for Faction Wars. When that comes out, it is going to be a little bit, so we don't have to worry about that just yet, but it is the time to start collecting these champions and getting ourselves prepared for that when it comes out. So I thought we'd go through all the champions and see who's good, who's not, and get kind of a look at them. Now, one of the things that is really interesting about the Sylvan Faction in general is a very healing-oriented faction, a lot of buffs in this faction, so it's kind of that protection-style faction here. A lot of carry type of champions, so should be pretty interesting. I think there's a lot of cool champion interactions here, some interesting skills that are going on. Nothing necessarily groundbreaking per se, but definitely some interesting ones you're going to want to look at. I really appreciate you coming by to watch this video, and if you enjoy it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below, the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And of course, if you enjoyed today's music, we have that Soundstripe link down below in the pinned comment description of this video, along with my code DeadwoodJedi to save yourself 15%. And of course, if you're looking for account work, you can find that on my website, DeadwoodJedi.com. So this is the Sylvan Watchers faction. Obviously, you know, it's only 11 champions right now. It's a slow start, but there are some good ones in here, and obviously it's going to grow over time. And, you know, there is kind of a focus with this one, more on healing, more on protection style stuff, some buffs. You're going to see a lot of strengthen, a lot of taunt, the new buff that is out there, which is whatever right now, in my opinion, but we'll see if that kind of develops over time. So it's interesting. We'll see how this kind of works as it goes along. So let's start off with the rare champion that's included as Pathfinder Kate. Now, I don't think she's actually going to be worth necessarily getting, but she is the first rare that's available. She's got a block buffs with a 35% chance of landing when booked on a single target. That's okay, right? It's nothing really special. The A2 is an AoE and has a chance to increase the cooldown of a random skill on each target by 2 turns. That's not so bad, right? Whenever you can increase the cooldown of skills on the enemy, that's good, because that means they can't use those skills. So it becomes kind of almost a defunct taunt ability, right? That's not so bad. The passive is place the perfect veil on this champion for 1 turn whenever they kill an enemy. I'm never a big fan of kill an enemy, get a buff type things, because it's just not that often, but that's the kit. So I don't think there's anything really to love about her or anything else. I don't really want to spend much time on her, to be honest. And then in the epics, once we start going in there, we can start with White Dryad Nia. She is the Void epic here. And she's got some interesting stuff, right? She's got a AoE on the A1, which I always like, especially because it comes with a decreased speed debuff. 50% chance to land, that is not bad for an AoE skill. She is defensive-based damage as well, so you can build her tanking, she'll be effective. I actually really like this champion because she's got some cool things, especially this A2 ability. It's a full cleanse on one ally, right? So it's a target ally, it's not everybody. And it heals them for 40% of their max HP. So it's a really big heal with the cleanse. But the cool thing about this, if the target is not her, then it will reduce the cooldown of this target skills by 2 turns. So you kind of have an interesting combination here of, you know, a lot of different skills, but you got that cooldown reduction ability. This could be pretty darn useful depending on who you combine her with. So there is a lot of potential to be using her in a gaming type of system, which I think is really cool. On top of that, she's got this kind of white ash birch type of wood look to her, which I think is pretty dope, to be honest. It's both like armor and kind of her skin as well, which is pretty cool. So there's definitely a lot there that I like. And then of course her A3 is an ally protection, a big one, with a small version of the strengthen buff. So that's a really good way to help keep everybody alive. But of course, that's not everything, because her passive ability, whenever this champion is healed, heals each ally except this champion by 20% of that heal. With a very high base HP, a pretty solid base defense, and speed, this makes her really viable. Not to mention, those skills all book to 3-turn cooldowns, so she's going to be healing everybody else even when she's the one being healed. On top of that, she can reduce cooldowns with her massive heal ability and protect all her allies with the ally protection and the strengthen skill. So if you can combine her with a good healer, she's actually going to be able to heal everybody else on the team whenever she takes a turn, which I think is pretty remarkable. So there is, I think, a lot to like about this champion, somebody that you definitely want to get. And then we come to Ruella. Ruella is, you know, an interesting champion, right? A1, it's a triple hit with decreased turn meter on for 5% for each crit, right? So you build her with 100% crit rate. She's also got a decreased speed, another triple hit on the A2 with decreased defense, weaken, and decreased speed on each hit. Each hit has a, when booked, 75% chance to land those debuffs. I think it's each hit has a chance to land one of those debuffs basically, but that's a lot of skills. Those are really nice skills to have in your kit, especially on a triple hit skill. So Giant Slayer is definitely going to be better for her than War Master. And then her A3 is a turn meter boost for all allies by 20% and an increased crit rate by 30% for all allies for 2 turns. This book's down to a 3-turn cooldown, so you can cast this and then go into each one of her other skills. Now, her A2 is a 4-turn cooldown, which is annoying. It's always annoying when you have, you know, the A3 is 3 turns and the A2 is 4 turns. It means you're not going to get that A2 as much as possible, or you're going to prioritize that, in which case the A3 ability isn't going to be working nearly as much as you want. But, you know, I still think it's a really nice ability. Even if you prioritize the A2, then go with the A3, the A1 are the 2 skills that are going to come after that A3 is used, so they will get that 30% turn meter or 30% crit rate boost. So she will be able to crit on those with only booking her to 70% crit rate. So that is good. There is some synergy there, which is nice. Her attack is not really high. Her HP is not super high, but it's not terrible. Pretty low defense, but really high speed. So there is definitely some potential for her to be used. I'm not sure exactly how yet. Obviously, Fire Knight comes to mind, but she does have a lot of potential. And then we have Myceliac Priest Oren. The mushroom guy, basically, is what's going on here. And he's very interesting, right? You got a lot of poisons, basically, and healing coming out of here. So the A1 is a 2-hitter with a chance to place poison on each of those hits, 40% when booked. That's pretty solid. It's a lot like Steel Skull, actually higher percentage in Steel Skull to land those. So I would say a good ability right there. A2 is another double hit with each chance having a chance to, and it books up to 100%, to activate 1 poison. So we got another poison activation champion, and because he places so many, that's actually not a bad thing. I think you can get a lot of benefit out of that, frankly. The A3 has an AoE ability, placing poisons and poison sensitivity on all enemies for 2 turns, and heals this champion by 5% of the max HP for each poison debuff placed by this skill. This is nice. He is an HP-based champion as well, so that makes it a lot easier to build tanky with a really high base HP of 20k and solid base defense of 1100. He's going to be a solid champion here. The passive ability, whenever poison debuff is activated on an enemy, increases his champion's HP and defense by 5%, stacking up to 25% and resetting each round. That means he's got a weaker version of the passive ability of somebody like a Rhodos, right? And so he's going to be increasing his HP and his defense as he goes through, as those poisons get activated. I definitely see a place for this champion in any PvE content, whether we're talking Doom Tower, dungeons, or clan boss, I think, or even Hydra. I think he's definitely going to be a good one to have. And then we come to Mist Rider Daithi. Now I think Daithi, I'm going to say Daithi. I'm going to say Daithi. The Mist Rider. He's got a real interesting kit, and there's a lot of good synergy going on here with him, because basically he's going to cycle through all of his skills every other turn. So to explain this, I'm actually going to start with the A3 here, where he gets an increased attack buff, increased accuracy buff, and those are both for 3-turn cooldowns, and then gets an extra turn. Okay, so with that extra turn, he's going to use his A2 here, which is on a 4-turn cooldown. Both these are 4-turn cooldowns when booked, but remember, first turn, he takes this, he gets an extra turn. Then he's going to go into this A2 ability where he's going to AoE attack and will land decreased defense for 2 turns. And if that decreased defense is placed on all enemies, he'll get an extra turn out of it. Those book up to 100% chances to land. So he's getting an extra turn on this skill as well, which then leads him to his A1 ability right here, which is attack 1 enemy, 50% chance of removing 1 random buff from the target, also 10% chance of granting the champion an extra turn again, and that gets booked up to 20% chance. So he's getting extra turns all over the place. Now, if he does not get this extra turn on this A1, that means he's going to go A3, A2, A1, next turn comes around, that's all 1 turn, do the A1 again, and then his skills are fully on refresh. Because if we think about it, 4-turn cooldown, right? He goes 4-turn cooldown, right? Extra turn, A2 goes, extra turn, right? And then it's the A1. So he only has one more turn of cooldown before that skill's activated. If he gets an extra turn on that A1, he's doing the whole cycle again. So this guy could be taking mad amounts of turns over and over and over again. That's at least the potential that is here for this class. So definitely a cool champion. I don't know how great he's going to be honest with you. Because of those extra turns, there are going to be some issues, right? When you talk about, any like a clan boss team for something like that, he's going to be a little problematic because if you have speed buffs, he's going to burn through those too fast. If you're using unkillable, he's going to burn through the unkillable abilities too fast. So there's only going to be a few situations. Basically, if there's a champion where you could use Relentless on him, like in a Bad Eater team or something, I think Mistress Rider Daithi could be really good for that. But I do see there's definitely more potential in things like maybe Hydra, definitely dungeon runs. I could see him being pretty solid at. My guess is he's probably not going to be super used, but I just like the kit. I like the synergy there, and I think there's a lot of potential to it. And then we have Dunedin the Runic. Now, this is the big stone golem essentially here. I really like this guy though. He's got this weird combination of elephant and moose head going on here, but he's got some really cool skills. So A1, right? Chance of removing one random debuff from all allies. That's pretty good, right? Basically books up to a 60% chance of a cleanse on that A1 skill. That's not bad. A2, AoE skill, places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 15% of this champion's max HP and increases the duration of all buffs on all allies by 1 turn. So you got a buff extension ability in combination with a shield, and it's still an attack, so he's not missing out on any damage along the way. He is HP-based champion, which means all his damage is going to be based off HP, which is good because you can build him tanky and still have him be effective. And then his A3 places a taunt on this champion for 1 turn. Now, I haven't really talked about taunt a lot. I'm not a huge fan of this buff, but it doesn't hurt us in this situation. Also places a strengthen and counterattack buff on this champion for 2 turns. So that part I think is really great. Getting the strength and getting the counterattack. He's placing shields on his allies. He's cleansing with his A1. There's a lot to like in this kit. It's not fancy, but it's very solid. This does book down to a 3-turn cooldown. The A2 is still at a 4-turn cooldown, so you're not getting that shield as often or the buff extension as often. That's the only thing that I dislike about this. I wish those 2 skills were a little bit more in synergy, but there's still a lot to like about the fact that he gets counterattack, he gets that strengthen, and that means with that counterattack, he has that chance to cleanse his allies is going to happen more often because every time he uses that A1, which is what you do on counterattack, you get that option there. He does have an all battles defensive aura, 20%, which isn't bad. His stats aren't bad, right? Pretty solid HP. Same thing with the defense and the speed. So I think he's going to be pretty easy to build and a fairly, very effective champion for you. Next, we have Cormac the High Peak. Now, I like this guy, right? We got this kind of druidic shaman type of thing going on here. I like the green hands there, green stone hands. Anyway, this guy's going to be kind of interesting, right? A1 attacks, places a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns, right? Books up to 50%, nothing bad there. A2 attacks one enemy and has a chance of placing decreased defense beforehand. A3, increase accuracy, increase crit rate, and grants his champion an extra turn. This 3-turn buff duration. It books down to a 4-turn cooldown, which means basically every attack by the time this comes back will have those buffs on it. That is good. I'm glad they did that. I'm not what I would call a huge fan of this kit unless he hits like an absolute truck. I don't see this being crazy useful. First off, all single target, right? That's never my favorite thing. He does bring 2 really nice debuffs in decreased speed and decreased defense. And the buffs that he puts on himself, the buffs that he puts on himself are quite good, right? I like the increased crit rate, or increased accuracy and increased crit rate. I think those are 2 very valuable ones for him to have, especially for what is ostensibly a nuke champion, right? His base HP, or his base attack, is extremely high at 1500. Base speed's a little bit on the low side. HP's a little bit, on the low side, but it's, passable for sure. Defense is definitely low. So this is a nuke-style champion here. Getting the increased accuracy buff helps make it easier to build him to do damage and still land some debuffs. The increased crit rate makes it a lot easier to build him to deal damage because you don't have to build him at 100% crit rate. So there are some things to like about this champion for sure. I'm not in love with him, but I can see if you're really desperate for some damage dealers that he could be really useful, especially in things where you have a single target like boss fights. I feel like he's going to be more useful there. Which, of course, takes us to the legendary champions, and these are actually really good ones. We got 4 of them, so let's dive in with Elva here. Elva Autumnborn. Really cool kid. I do really like this. It's kind of like a I don't know. To me, it's like, I feel like there's some anime where, a plant gets taken over with evil energy. I think it might be something, the Shield Hero or anime or something like that. But he's got this red veins going through her wooden skin and this wood armor thing going on here. It just looks super cool, right? But A1 skill places a continuous heal buff for 2 allies on the ally with the lowest for 2 turns on the ally with the lowest HP. This is a really nice kit she's got. Now, it is 8 attack base damage, and that's the one negative I would say with this, because she's got a very good kind of carry type of kit. So I don't like having to build her for attack, but that's fine, right? Getting continuous heal out, great on the A1. A2, full cleanse on all allies, right? Remove all debuffs from all allies, and when booked anyway, and places a block debuffs and increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. This does book to a 3-turn cooldown. This means she's a potential replacement for somebody like a Lydia or a Tuhana Rock that we use in clan boss teams, because she's getting that increased speed, or even a Eris potentially. She has a cleanse, she has a block debuff, she has an increased speed with no turn meter boost. All that on a 3-turn cooldown is a really nice skill combination there. And then her A3 is a revive with revives a target ally. So this is only single target, but still very significant. 40% HP, 50% turn meter, and places increased defense and increased attack buff on that ally for 2 turn. Again, 3-turn cooldown. When you get a revive that quickly, that's actually really significant and really unusual in this game. You don't usually get revives that fast. Like there's champion Raglan, who has a 2-turn revive. That's one of the things that makes her so valuable, is her revive happens so often. This is 3 turns. Now, it is single target, not the best, but still, definitely something worth keeping in mind. Now, the part I really like about her is this passive ability. Heals each ally 10% of their max HP at the start of their turn, reminiscent of somebody like Sylva Drake. Place the perfect Veil buff for 1 turn on the ally with the lowest HP at the end of this champion's turn. So we're getting a perfect Veil out there on the weakest of champions. We're getting healing every single turn. She brings a lot of utility to the kit as far as keeping your team alive, and so there's a lot to like there. On top of that, she does have an all-battle speed aura of 19%, which is great. She's got a really high base HP, or a solid base HP, a solid base defense, and a really high base speed. Does make her easier to build to stay alive, and I think that's going to be really valuable. So I see a lot of potential in this champion being utilized in pretty much every area of the game, whether you're talking arena, whether you're talking clan boss, Hydra, Doom Tower, anything. I think she's going to be a really good carry for your team. And then we have King Kobar, the king himself. He does look pretty dope, I have to say. I like the kind of horned lizard cape that he has on himself there. It's pretty dope. A1 skill, right? Places a shield buff for 2 turns on the ally with the lowest HP, so you combine those last 2. That could be something. Value of the shield equal to 15% of the ally's max HP. Okay, so you got a pretty big shield, but it is based on the ally's HP, so that's not as great as it could be. Still not bad. It is an attack-based champion again, but this is another support champion, right? This is somebody that's going to help keep your team alive. You're not really worried about damage when you're building him. What you have here, AoE on the A2, removes all buffs, and booked on 100% when booked, right? Removes all buffs. Places a poison debuff for 2 turns on each enemy for every buff removed from them. Also has a 80% chance of, with books up to 100%, placing block debuffs on all enemies for 1 turn. That's pretty nice, right? We have a fair amount of champions that can place block debuffs or block buffs on the enemies, and that can be really effective, right? But then combining that with a buff strip is pretty unusual, and that's even more powerful. Not to mention adding the poison to it doesn't hurt at all, right? So you're getting buff strip, you're getting block buffs out there, and poisons. I really like this on a 3-turn cooldown. That is not a bad skill as an AoE. I like that a lot. Then we have the A3, which is a cleanse for the allies and a continuous heal buff for 1 turn on each ally for every debuff removed from them. That's pretty significant. Also places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns. The shield is equal to 25% of this champion's max HP. So if you stack his HP up, you're going to get a pretty massive shield on your allies. So let's look at this, right? We're getting a massive shield. We're getting a cleanse for our allies with continuous heal for cleansing debuffs. We're getting block buffs out there on the enemy, not to mention stripping all the buffs that they might have out there. And then on top of that, we're getting a shield randomly from the A1 just to kind of help out our weak guy on this team. This is tailor-made for Hydra, if I've ever heard of it. Like, it's a carry for your Hydra team to help keep your team alive. I think really good addition. And then the passive ability, whenever an enemy under a poison debuff attacks an ally under a shield debuff, instantly activates one poison debuff on that enemy. Also, instantly activates one continuous heal buff on that attacked ally, which I think is pretty cool. So you're instantly getting a heal out of that skill every time they're just attacked and they have a shield on. So it really works well in conjunction with that A3. This is actually a really well put together kit, in my opinion. I would love to see this champion paired with a Gerp Tuck, where he's putting poisons on your team. He then cleanses those, replacing those poisons with continuous heals. Then your team gets attacked. What's happening? Those continuous heals are activating. Between Gerptuk, between Kobar, you're now making sure that you have block buffs on the enemy for the entire turn, for the entire time of the fight. That's a really good Hydra combination, I think, that we might be seeing in the future here. So definitely somebody I like. I think there is a lot of potential there with that. Now, as far as his stats, right, he's got good base HP at almost 21,000, good base defense, and really good base speed at 108. So as long as you can get his accuracy to a requisite level to land those debuffs, I think he's going to be a really good champion for a lot of you. And then we have Ruark, who, I mean, I don't know. This looks pretty cool. I like the sword. Got his own green little lightsaber going on there. The shield's dope. I mean, yeah, I don't know. This headpiece is what's kind of getting me. This like faux hair kind of shimmering mail thing. Pretty dope. Anyway, this guy's got some interesting stuff as well. Green Warden Ruark. Attacks one enemy, he transfers all debuffs from this champion to the target, heals the champion by 5% of their max HP for each debuff transferred. I don't really care too much about the skill itself. It's okay. It's definitely not bad, but it's just also not like a life-changing skill. What is really cool is he has a defense-based skill, right? That is nice to have on somebody. So I do like the fact that he's defense-based, makes him a lot easier to build to survive. A2 ability, AoE attack. And when booked, this is going to be 100%, but we'll place decrease attack debuff on all those enemies. That's great. Also, steals continuous heal buffs from the enemy, and this effect cannot be resisted, which is pretty awesome, I have to say. I don't know that there's a lot of continuous heal buffs that we have to worry about stealing, but it's nice that we can do that when it happens. It does book to a 3-turn cooldown. A3 places a taunt buff, an increased defense buff, and a strengthen buff on this champion for 2 turns. All that's great to help add to the survivability of this champion. Is defensive based, so getting increased defense is definitely nice as well. And then the passive ability, whenever an ally loses 10% or more of their max HP from a single hit, places a shield buff on that ally for 2 turns equal to 10% of their max HP. This is not bad. It does book down, so this will happen on every single hit. There'll be a 0-turn cooldown on it. That's nice. Not to mention an all-defense battle aura for 30% is pretty good. Now, the base stats are great, I think. Almost 1,500 defense is really solid. Almost 20,000 HP is really solid. And 102 base speed is great. I don't love this kit. And part of it is just the fact that there's not a lot of utility going in for everybody on this team, right? So the A1 is solid with the transfer and the heal, whatever. It's basically just an attack skill. That's nothing really to write home about. A2 sounds really good with the decreased attack as an AoE, but outside of that, it's not really doing a whole lot, right? Stealing continuous heal is not something we really need to worry about that much. You're building accuracy anyway for the decreased attack, so I don't know why this effect can't be resisted. I'm not sure that that actually helps us unless there's like something coming down the line where that's going to be important. This could be really nice as like a Withier counter, specifically in Arena, because she places so many of those continuous heals on people. But generally, I'm not like a super, like, I'm not really concerned about that skill at all. And then the A3, this would be great if these were AoE skills, but they just go on this champion. Makes it a lot less useful. In fact, something that I would probably want to turn off when it comes down to it, and rather bring in somebody else that's going to give increased defense and or strengthen for all of my teammates. Again, taunt isn't provoke, right? It's not that great of an ability, in my opinion. I'm very happy to be proven wrong about that. But from what I can see, I don't see this being a super effective skill that's going to make a huge difference in this game. So it's not something that has me extremely, extremely excited. It does depend on the coding, and I'll get into that in a different video. But yeah, I'm not super thrilled about this necessarily, but it's not a bad kit. It's just he's probably the weakest out of all these legendaries. Still, defensive base champ. He's going to hit hard. It's not a bad kit overall. And then very last, we have Allele. I think this dude looks awesome. Obviously, the scythe, the white horns. He's freaking, I don't know. This is which one of the House of Dragons people is this with the white hair going on, right? And the 2 blades at his side. He looks very cool, regardless, right? But let's look at his kit. I actually like this kit a lot. A1, attacks one enemy, seals all buff from the target the first time this champion hits them with this skill. This effect cannot be resisted. This is the best thing about this guy's kit. You do not need accuracy to make him work. At least that's the way the kit reads. I'm really excited about this. Each subsequent time this attack hits an enemy, no buffs will be stolen. Instead, the damage will be increased by 10% for each buff on the target. Pretty dope, right? So it's not bad. Like, this isn't like the craziest bonus thing, but that first part, the stealing the skills with not allowing that effect to be resisted, is amazing. I think that can be really effective. The A2 ability is a single target hit, ignores strengthen, stone skin, increased defense, and ally protection buffs. If this attack kills an enemy, fully heals this champion and places a stone skin buff on him for 1 turn. This is the skill that's going to make this champion worthwhile, because all of a sudden we have something that can kill stone skin in arena that isn't bombs. That can be massive, right? Absolutely massive. You know, I think those, you know, I just feel like if you're going to get this champion, you're going to be able to target certain teams that are obviously stone skin teams, take out one champion that is extremely important to them, and all of a sudden he's now protected. He's now fully healed and doing even more work for you. So I definitely feel like he has a place in arena simply because of this skill right here. Now his A3 is an AoE attack. Before he attacks, removes any increased defense buffs from the enemy and will instead replace it with a decreased defense. We'll remove any strengthen and replace it with a weaken. So we got some nice synergy going on there, and places a block buffs debuff for 1 turn on enemies not under increased defense or strengthen before attacking. And the buff removal and debuff placement cannot be resisted. Again, fantastic. Don't need any accuracy on them, so you can build them full on attack, which is massive. And when we talk about building them full on attack, it only gets better when we look at the passive ability here. Increases champions HP by 2,000 and defense by 100 for every 1,000 attack they have. So you really don't have to worry about putting any survivability on this champion, because just by building him for damage, he's going to have some natural survivability added to his kit. Now, if I build him with 5,000 attack, which I feel like is kind of a middle level for a champion like this, I mean, he's got a really high base attack, one of the highest in the game. I feel like, you know, you're still adding, with 5,000 attack, you're adding 10,000 HP, you're adding 500 defense. Those are significant additions to this champion. So you're going to be in a pretty solid spot right there, right? Now, on top of that, what happens when he gets an increased attack buff? Well, that's only going to go up higher. What happens if you can build him with 7,000 attack? It's going to go up even higher. There's lots of ways to juice those numbers and juice them significantly. Also, fills the champion's turn meter by 10% whenever they receive a buff, which is also really nice. So there's a lot going on in this kit that I really, really like. And of course, crit rate in all battles by 25% is equal to, I think, Bad Alcazar. That's very significant. So there's definitely going to be some usage for this champion. He's got a really nice base speed, actually at 105, and really high base attack at 1,600. Base defense, base HP, neither of those are bad either. So there's a lot of potential with this champion. I think he's easily the best of the bunch as far as immediate usage. I know we all can see immediately how we're going to use this champion in this game, and he's definitely somebody I'd like to get. All right, that's the Sylvan Wardens. Sylvan Watchers. Got it. They're watching. So those are the Sylvan Watchers, right? I think this is a great addition to the game. I know there was a lot of speculation on which type of faction is going to be introduced, but I like this one. It is very different from any of the other factions. It's very plant-based, right, which is very different from the other factions that we've had. We just need to figure out how to move Gerptuck over into this faction. I think we'll be in really good shape. But yeah, it's really, really good. I definitely can see some interesting synergies going on with these champions and some of the other ones in this game, much more so than I would say with the Shadowkin. The Shadowkin, I have not really been a huge fan of their faction. They're great champions are in that, but they're all very lone wolf, a lot of attack-based stuff, which is, you know, you get mixed results with that kind of a champion. With this, there's so much utility. I definitely feel like we're going to be able to build some very successful teams with these champions, and I think that's going to be really, really important for us. So it's a really good faction. I think that's going to be very helpful for us, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what champions they bring out next to help fill this one out, because these ones are pretty darn cool. So anyway, guys, that's the video we got. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and yeah, hope you know, I don't know, stick around. Watch my stuff. That's all I got. Guys, thanks for sticking around. We'll have more videos on this test server coming up soon, so make sure to keep watching the channel. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.